Hello and welcome. My name is Jonathan Burnside. In this series of videos, we will be covering the structure of a generic rendering system. In this particular video, we will introduce the concept of scene management. Then in the next video, we will start defining the goals of our renderer. So let's dive in. Scene management is a very generic general system for managing the objects in a given simulation. When dealing with these scene objects, we will find we need fast collision detection systems to optimize dealing with them. So let's think about that in a real-world example. Suppose if I am standing somewhere in the state of Florida, am I colliding with somebody who's standing in Russia? We can probably all quickly determine that I am not currently colliding with anyone that far away. But basic collision detection routines do not operate any faster for these obvious cases. Instead, we will use spatial partitioning systems to divide up our simulation space. Then, when objects are determined to be in different sections of our world, or different spaces, we can quickly determine that they do not collide. With these systems in place, if I wanted to know if I was colliding with someone in Russia, we would first determine if I am colliding with Russia. If not, then I can't possibly be colliding with anything contained inside. These systems will improve our collision detection, but what does that have to do with rendering? There's an old sort of optimization riddle that asks, what is the fastest code? And you might be thinking, well, there's not enough information in that question to give an answer. Like maybe a bit shift or some other particular bitwise operator or something. But the answer is so much simpler. The real answer to what is the fastest code is code that never runs. It's infinitely fast. It costs us nothing if it doesn't run. That should be your first optimization you always try to make. If something's running too slow, well, can we just not do it altogether? Great, if that's possible. With rendering, we can use that. Through collision detection, we can actually predetermine what objects are in view and which ones are not. The ones that are not in view, we can go ahead and skip rendering them. And there's our fastest code, because we didn't render those ones that weren't in view, we wouldn't see. We can do similar things for other costly systems beyond just rendering, or any real system that just is fairly costly and doesn't add anything to the end user's experience while not in view. As an example, we might turn on or off some AI features. If you've played the original Grand Theft Auto 3, you may have found yourself walking around a corner, out into the street, and find that there's no cars on the street, only to wait a few seconds, and suddenly a ton of cars spawn all over the street, up and down it, maybe even right on top of you, running you over. Well, what happened? What they were doing is they were turning off a costly AI traffic and rendering system when it was not in view. So you started around one corner, and on the other side of the block, they turned this system off. You then moved to this location where the traffic was turned off, and they turned that system back on. Of course, in this particular example, it took a little too long usually, and we could see that turning on, and that's something to be avoided, but it gives a good idea of how we could use this concept for systems other than just rendering. Here, we will see a sort of minimal list of all the tasks our scene management must perform. The first step, hierarchy flattening, has to do with how we keep multiple meshes together. So, assume we might have a model for a player character, but that model isn't always just going to be a single mesh. You might have the arm made up of 3 or 4 or even more multiple meshes that are supposed to stay together. So Think about this. If you rotate your shoulder, your hand is going to move with it. Why does this happen? Well, we have bones and all our joints and things are connected. But in our simulation, these things don't exist. Hierarchy flattening is how we will create that illusion of moving these things around and keeping them together, and it'll involve some matrix math to do so. Step 2, getting the viewable set. Well, this is going to be a topic for another class, but the general idea here is just going to find all the shapes or objects we need to render. Basically, just find all the ones that would be in view. We typically use frustum calling and spatial system techniques to get this viewable set. All we really need to know about it for now is, as a result, we're going to have a big list of objects that we need to render, and they're in no particular order. Step 3, we take the results of the viewable set from step 2, and we sort those. I'm going to sort these into multiple sets. Each set might have a different sorting technique or some other property that makes all the objects similar in a given set. But some of these sorting techniques will be for optimization purposes, such as sorting our opaque set from front to back, or the render context sorting that we'll talk about in a later video. And some other techniques are for specific effects and are required for those effects to work, such as sorting our transparent set to make standard alpha blending function correctly. The last step of our scene management, step 4, rendering, that's what we're going to focus on today. This will actually be the topic of our future videos. Thank you for watching this particular video. In the next one, we will start to talk about the goals of our renderer system. Thank you.